Okay, so this is going to be a slightly different intro to Marketing Study Lab because of the surname I'm going to attempt to pronounce here. So I'm going to give this a go. And I've written it down just for full disclosure. Written it down. Nick Diakanastasis.
That was pretty good, actually.
Okay, we'll get better. We'll try it again at the end.
Yeah.
Welcome to
Thank
the
you for having
Marketing
me.
Study Lab podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Okay, now that difficult part is out of the way, I like to start every podcast the same with a completely random or not so random opener. My random opener to you is, what is your favorite film line?
Well, this is so cliche, but technically it's not really a film line. They just use it in that movie, like Dead Poet Society. So Carpe Diem, seize the day.
Oh, I love it.
This goes back like millennia. It's a Latin quote. So yeah, I really like that. I'm not one of those hustle all the time people. It's not my favorite because of that, but it's because seize the day as opposed to wait for it to come to you. You know, it's about being proactive and taking charge.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely love it. And it's so true, particularly in the times we're recording this. You know, there's still opportunities out there, and you can see that disparity between the people that are Carpe Diem and the others that are, well, just wait till I get back to work.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can impart some actionable tips and knowledge on this episode that can help people Carpe Diem.
Yeah, nice segue.
Yeah, I know, love it. Before we get to that, though, what I want to know is your story that brings you to this stage in your career, and what are you up to now?
Yeah, well, bullet points. I'm a linguist turned actor, so I'm half Greek, half Swiss. I studied English language and literature way back, originally at university. Okay. Then I thought, well, this is a load of crap. I don't want to do that, actually. I was just kind of pressured into studying anything, which I think a lot of young people go through today as well. So I thought, well, what's easiest for me? Oh, language studies. So I did that. And then I thought, I don't want to be a teacher or a translator. Jokes on me, because then I was that for a few years, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
Then I went to drama school because it was just one of those wild inspirations. Like I did a tester course, I think 2 or 3 weeks in a summer when I was 21. And I thought, this is it. This is my calling. I'm going to do this. Then, yeah, I went and got extensively trained. I have a Master of Arts in acting, which I don't technically practice anymore because I don't perform. Then quite soon I realized that, oh my God, that's a really hard life. And I'm going to be broke forever if I keep trying to be a performer. And I don't want to do that. So I went back to language teaching and translating for quite a long time. And then about a year ago, just about, I decided, you know what? I start language training people, usually training professionals in German, because they want to do their presentations, they want to meet clients, they want to move to German-speaking countries. And it always ends up being some kind of public speaking or presentation skills coaching anyway. Like the language just falls kind of by the side. And then I have them, we do role plays and I tell them how to do a good speech and how to engage their audience. So I thought I might as well just go whole hog and go back into that, because I do find that I love languages, but I do find that creative, performative side much more interesting than the language stuff. So this is where I am today. I help primarily small business owners, whatever, name they want to go by, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, freelancers, yada, yada. I help them ace their public speaking by using the training that I got at drama school. So it's very technical.
That's cool. That was my next question. So the masters that you got, is that a nice little intro, almost a bit of social proof to say, even though that isn't what you practice, it's like, look, I do know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, it is, because public speaking and presentation skills coaching of some kind of other seems to be booming right now, especially with the lockdown, because everyone needs to get on video. And it seems like a whole lot of people want a slice of that pie. And without wanting to get too ranty, I see it on my feed all the time. Like everybody and their dog is offering some kind of similar service, I guess, to what I do. And I'm not usually a gatekeeper. I'm not like, oh, you need to have that post-nominal letter or you need to have this experience and that. But I do think a lot of people are just trying to get a slice of that pie and claiming to help people with stuff that they can't really help them with.
Yeah.
So it definitely is a differentiator. Like when people work with me, they say, "Oh, I saw you're actually a trained actor." I mean, that's a big differentiator between you and somebody who until yesterday was an engineer or whatever, was serving coffee and just decided, you know what, I'm going to help people, be good on camera. Like, can you do that though?
Yeah.
To what extent can you do that?
I love that. And we'll come on to some more actionable tips in a little bit. But one thing that just interested me there, and I'm sure we'll cover it later on, but you're saying that lots of different languages and people from different countries. So can you, I think a lot of people say it's more about body language than what you say potentially, and how you look and how you come across, and maybe the tone of voice and that. I don't want to, don't want to steal your thunder, and we'll get into that. But if someone was speaking a different language, could you happily go, "That was a good speech, that, although I didn't understand a word of it, that was good"?
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, communication is largely nonverbal. So I would definitely miss some of it. But I think I could make an educated guess to how engaging that was, just from everything else. But I would definitely miss some stuff.
Yeah, cool. Like it. Okay, right. That brings us nicely onto stuff that you're not going to miss, because you're an expert in this. And the actionable tips we're going to cover today is about being confident on video. So I kind of feel like we're getting a freebie here from you in terms of the tips you're going to give, which is brilliant. Absolutely love it, and appreciate you coming on and giving your time. So the first thing I'd quite like to cover, or I'd like you to cover, is what should we do before we go on camera? That's the first bit, because we know we want to be on camera. Like you said, a lot of people are diving.
But some people don't want to be on camera; they just have to be. So there's that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, yeah. So some people aren't confident on camera. Some people know they have to go on. But what should we do leading up to being on camera?
Sounds wrong. Loosen yourself up as much as you can physically. That doesn't mean like Dutch courage, but it means stretch everything out and warm it up, because it's really difficult to feel comfortable mentally, whatever you want to call it, if you're not comfortable physically. So if you're sitting the wrong way, if you're wearing stuff that is too tight, if everything is stiff, like you need to crack your neck, crack your back, crack every joint in your body, that kind of stuff really has a domino effect on how you come across. So what I like to do, what we were taught at drama school, is you pretty much hit the nail on the head. So the preparation starts before you're on stage. You can't just, even if you're a trained actor, you can't just snap your fingers and turn it on necessarily. Now, obviously, if you want to do a video, that takes a lot less preparation and a lot less straight up acting, I guess, performing, than being on a stage. But the same principles still apply, just on a smaller scale. So warm up your voice, for example, safely. Now, I can show you a couple of drills and exercises you can do. Warm up your body, stretch everything out. Make sure you're nice and warm and, what should I call it? Elastic, permeable, so that you can respond to what the other person gives you. Well, it depends on whether you're doing some kind of presentation or whether you're doing some kind of video, because that obviously kicks things up a notch. Because if you can't see your audience and get any kind of feedback in that moment, that makes it harder. But it is very important to remember that you're not actually talking to a machine, just via a machine. So there are people on the other end. So sometimes you might need to even go as far as imagining that people are responding to you live, like you played like a dialogue in your head, if that makes sense. Yeah. So you say, "Hey, how's everyone doing?" And then you imagine them going, great, or something like that, just to keep that flow going and not to be completely stiff and robotic. Does that kind of cover it? Because then I'll get into the details, like what I mean by warming up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting. So a couple of people have been on the show. A lady called Hala, and Hala Taha. She does Young and Profiting podcast, and she says that she looks in the mirror and kind of smiles before she goes on camera and all that kind of stuff, and it gets in the mood. And also a body language expert, Mark Bowden. He's quite prevalent on LinkedIn, and he has a smiley face just up here on a post-it note.
Oh, that's good.
Yes. So if he's not talking to anyone, he can see that smiley face, and it's just a nice little prompt.
It is, because you still want to transmit something. It's not about just you talking to yourself. Hopefully there's someone receiving the message on the other end. If it's not live, then later. But yeah, definitely think about that communication, even if it feels one-sided sometimes.
Yeah, that's cool. Can you
So,
can
I
you
can show
give
you
us
some
one exercise then?
Yes. So the biggest thing is that a lot of people, and I'm saying this with love, it just is what it is. Most people are breathing incorrectly. So it starts even there. So most people breathe shallowly into their chest. What you're supposed to be doing is breathe deeply into your diaphragm. The diaphragm is a muscle that's right under your rib cage, like right where the rib cage ends. Don't press it because it's going to feel weird. But yeah, so if you breathe correctly, deeply, then your belly should expand and contract like a balloon. Like if you observe babies breathing, that's actually what they do. So that's
true.
That's what we're supposed to be doing. But then later in life, at some point, most of us unlearn it. And then we at drama school had to relearn it. We were all like, this is weird. And they told us, but that's how you're supposed to be breathing. Like that's how Mother Nature gives it to you. And then you unlearn it because of stress or because of various other things, or because you see people going and breathe in and everything just rises and you think, oh, that's what I should be doing. It's not. It's suboptimal. So it's so much easier to do everything else vocally and physically if you actually breathe deeply. It helps, get more oxygen, so you're not constantly running out of breath, because that's not going to make a good impression. It helps control your airflow. It helps you project your voice without needing to push, because the power is supposed to come from your core, not from your throat, because that's how you get injured. And then the next step, so you do that a few times, and you can do it slowly, and ideally will be circular, so in through your nose, out through your mouth, so something like this. Hold it a few seconds, and ideally you slowly feel your stomach expand and contract. Anyone who's done yoga or something similar probably has at least some experience with that. And then you start adding the voice, so you start warming up softly. So the best way you can do that, and people underestimate, I think, how much someone can tell from your voice and how much of a difference that makes. So if your voice is not warmed up properly, it's not just about the quality of the sound that is off, it's about the fact that on some level, unconsciously, you're going to be holding yourself back. So what happens is the anxiety kicks in, and then people realize that their voice is trembling or that their voice is about to give out. So they play it super, super safe, and they stay within a tiny little pitch, like 1 or 2 notes. So everything sounds monotone like this, and they don't do anything, and there's no dynamic to that, because they don't want to go above or below. Yeah. So
just a light bulb then. Absolute light bulb.
Nice. But I'm like, yeah, you're holding back because or you're afraid that your voice is gonna crack if you try to go up or down. So you keep everything here very narrow and safe. So what you need to do is physically, you need to warm up that above and below side, so that you don't need to worry that your voice is just going to crack and give out or tremble like that when you're in public. So it helps to, the trembling is more about the breathing. So you need to really drill those diaphragmatic breaths. I mean, ideally, you'd be breathing like this all day. When people tell me, so how often do I need to breathe this way? I'm like, all the time. Till kingdom come, amen.
Yeah. Non-negotiable. Just get it done.
Yeah, and in the beginning, it's gonna feel weird, but it's just your body readjusting. It's about building some new, more productive muscle memories. And then the voice, you need to actually warm it up, so that the safest way is to hum or to trill. And in the beginning, do you know what a trill is?
Nope.
Okay, it's fine. You don't need to. So it's when you breathe out like a horse. So your lips vibrate like.
Love it.
Like that. Nice. You'd be surprised at how many people have trouble even just with that, because I think we live in a society where a lot of people carry so much anxiety that the muscles here are just tight. So they can't actually let them flop. Sometimes people have to like physically massage and warm everything up so that it's loose. So when you do the trill, like, that's a nice 2-for-1, because it helps control your airflow, because if you have too little air, period, or you let it out too quickly, then it's just gonna, spurt out like, and you're done. Whereas you're supposed to be able to drag it out for several seconds. So that's one. It's a nice little gauge of, okay, how's my breath control today? Like, how likely am I to run out of breath mid-sentence?
Okay.
And then when you add the voice, you gently hum on that. Now, I don't know if the camera is going to pick up on that because the frequency might be the same as my actual voice. So I don't know if you can hear it. I'll try. And that helps you gently warm up your vocal range without injuring yourself. So you can do something like. So that's on one note. And then the next step will be to slide up and down, because you need to kind of thread that needle and slowly start warming up the parts of your voice that usually give out when you speak in front of people. So it would be something like. Like you can do little slides up and down, but doing that like top to bottom, that really helps warm that stuff up. So when you get on stage or in front of a camera, in this case, you don't have to worry about your voice cracking, and you can add more color and more dynamics because you know that it's there, it's warmed up now, it's stretched out. It's kind of like, you don't jump out of bed and expect to do the splits. Even if you're one of those few people who can, even if you're one of those few people who can do the splits, you're not going to do them straight out of bed. So think, well, why would you expect to just sit down in front of a camera and go all the way up there? You probably don't need to go all the way up there if you're just talking and not singing. But even up here, for a lot of people, their voice is already going to crack. So I'm like, yeah, but you wouldn't do that without any kind of warming up. In any kind of other physical skill. In public speaking and performance is largely, that's the thing that I can't shut up about, largely a physical thing, and secondarily an inner, emotional, mental, whatever you want to call it thing.
Interesting that, because when you were speaking, I was thinking that's exactly the same as when you go to the gym or when you work out. You don't look at a whatever kilogram weight or pound weight or whatever and think, right, I'm lifting that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna roll out of bed and lift up like 80 kilos. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And on the same respect, when you were talking about the diaphragm and where you breathe, I was just thinking about the way we sit and how we hunch our back.
Yeah.
And that is, I've been to a physiotherapist before, and they're always saying, sit as you'd normally sit, and you end up hunched over, and then they go,
yeah,
no,
this is how you sit.
and no, you sit like this, and you're like, really? That's how often? Like you said, how often do I have to do that? All
Forever.
the time, forever. Yeah,
yeah.
That's your natural position, and you're like, wow, I am way out there.
Yeah, well, we did that too. I mean, the alignment, that's what we used to call it. So things are supposed to be in a certain kind of order above, like in proportion to each other. And a lot of people hunch forward. That's more common. But then some people also hunch back, and we keep getting told, you're not a duck and you're not a cowboy. Like a duck would be, sticking your butt out and being like banana shaped.
Yeah.
And cowboy would be like you're riding an invisible horse, which a lot of people are doing. Like, you're not a duck, you're not a cowboy, you're a human. Like, stand like it. So that's another thing. Apart from the breathing, like the two foundations are breathing and holding your body in a productive alignment, which would be, you kind of need to imagine that you have an invisible thread going through your spine and coming out at the top of your head, like you're a puppet.
Like that.
So long, not like uncomfortably long, but long and at ease. And you have to have a little bit of flexibility. Like if you're standing, for example, on a stage, it's good to not lock your knees completely, because then that makes you feel anxious and you're like, I can't move now because I won't be able to like respond to the audience. But yeah.
So just moving it on along a little bit, I think what you said there can help people, warm up a little bit, and even that builds confidence. But how do we get rid of those nerves that can for some people take over their whole body? And the one thing I relate it to, which is slightly different to being confident on camera or public speaking, was I went to my nan's funeral a long time ago, and I remember standing in church and thinking, my knees are just going to give way. And I don't know whether it was nerves, it was emotion and all that kind of stuff running through my body. But I suppose a similar thing that people, if you stand on stage and you think, I'm just going to fall down here.
Yeah.
So how do we get rid of these nerves that take over our whole body?
Yeah. So the nerves are often quite a physical thing, really. So what you need to do is you work from the, this is my perspective, I'm not a therapist, but you need to work from the outside in. So you tackle the physical symptoms, and that can show your body and your mind like, oh, see, this is under control. There's no need to freak out. So one of the things, as I said, like the breath actually helps you, the diaphragmatic slow breathing, that already helps usually drop your blood pressure and your pulse that might be raising, etc. you're less likely to feel like you're suffocating, which is another symptom of nerves.
Wow.
I would say don't drink too much water, because a lot of people get dry mouth because of the nerves, but then they drink too much water and then they have to pee all the time. It's like, you don't want to have that in the back of your mind, like, I want to drink water, but I have to get on stage in 2 minutes or in front of a camera. And then doing certain things to relax, to counter basically those symptoms. So what happens when you get the anxiety is everything kind of clamps down. You need to very consciously open it up. You might need to move more slowly than you normally would, just because your body, once the adrenaline kicks in, you think, like, your brain speeds into hyper processing, like hyperspeed mode. So you think that everything else is slowing down once the adrenaline kicks in. That's actually not true. It's your processing speed that goes up.
Wow.
So you might be moving around in a much too jerky and spazzy way. So be very conscious of that. You might need to, not might, if you're quite new to this, you will pretty much have to relax your body physically. So it's the breath, it's the alignment. Before you go on, it could actually be good to do something, just like a little spurt of, like, I don't know, 30 seconds maybe, of something physical that helps decompress and get some adrenaline out, like some push-ups, a few like jumping jacks. They would have us do stuff like that at drama school, and we'd feel like idiots. It's like, yeah, I'm in full costume. I'm about to get out on stage in like 60 seconds, but you want me to do jumping jacks or push-ups. But it helps get some of that adrenaline to flush it basically out of your system, to decompress. And then the next thing, that is more inner, but it is actionable, I would argue, so we'll say it, is you need to remember that good performing, and make no mistake, public speaking is performing to an extent, regardless of what you choose to call it, is about the audience. So one of the biggest beefs that I have with a lot of advice that is out there on LinkedIn and in general, like books on Amazon, anything on the topic of public speaking, is it's so self-focused. It's all about how to feel this and how to feel that. I'm like, but you're not there just for yourself. You can navel gaze on your own time. So if you want to feel good about yourself, there's plenty of ways to do that without hogging up your audience's time. So remember that you are there for the other person. So you're there to give them something valuable. So you need to focus on them. The more you focus on yourself, the more anxious you're going to get. What helps distract you from those nerves is to focus on the audience and remember that you're giving them something. So it's not the technical stuff that I gave you, that's for before, to get kind of threading the needle, to get things in the right place and good to go. But then once you're on stage or on camera, you need to focus on your audience. Like, everything needs to be directed here, not here.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so interesting because, and I suppose it's human nature. We almost become insular, and like you say, it's all about self-preservation and protection, and not going to that high note or that low note or whatever, because your voice is. So how can I protect myself from that? Yeah. And it's if you flip it around, like we should do, as all good marketers need to focus on what the audience want.
Yeah.
You know, it makes perfect sense. Like, I'm here to help you, so I'll give you whatever you need. Really interesting. Yeah, love it.
Focusing on yourself is an excellent way to get caught up in a vicious circle of nerves, anxiety, more anxiety. It's like, focus on them. It's not time to focus on you. You can freak out later if you need to. But if you focus on them, it's much less likely that you're going to freak out anyway, because it feels so good to give, and it feels so good to have that effect on other people. So that's probably the quickest way to combat the anxiety, to just think that it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's not about you.
Absolutely. So when we're on camera, what about body language then? Should we, because I'm forever, and believe me, I'm really conscious about how I'm sitting, what I'm doing, how I'm speaking, that kind of stuff when speaking to you. But, you know, like what are we looking at when we're on camera?
Yeah. Okay. That is a bit more nuanced. So it depends on how you are as a person. Because, for example, I get people saying, oh, I gesture a lot when I speak. And that makes me self-conscious because people are going to think I'm a loon. I'm like, I'm half Greek. I gesture a lot when I speak as well. No one's ever like, I speak more with my hands, I think, than I speak with my mouth. That's fine. It's about finding something that for you is natural. And there's a difference, I think, between picking up a new skill or refining something you've already got and making it your own so that it's second nature, like what I'm doing right now, because English is not my native tongue, for example. But am I faking it by speaking English? I'm not faking it. This is how I would speak in my day-to-day life with people who don't speak Greek or German. You see what I
Mm.
mean? So there's a difference between faking it and picking up a new skill and making it your own. Kind of the golden middle, somewhere in between. So when I talk every day, I'm not talking like this because I'm Mediterranean, like that, which would be kind of if I didn't put on any kind of accent. But I don't pretend to be English either. Like that would be super weird. It was like,
Yeah,
oh,
you're just
hello,
you.
marvelous doll. Yeah, I don't do that either. So that happy medium is what I'm doing right now. So it's a new skill technically that I've just done so much that at this point it's second nature.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what you need to do, I think, with your body language as well. So once the productive, let's say, objectively productive parts are in place, like you're breathing correctly, you're not straining your voice, you're not standing or sitting in a way that makes you super uncomfortable or that makes it hard for you to actually communicate, the rest is up to you. Like there are a few things I think that you pretty much objectively shouldn't do, but other than that, it's really what works for you and your audience. So if you want to gesture a lot, go ahead. Like, why not? There's no rule that's, don't let the This Isn't Facebook Brigade take over and tell you that you should be super stiff and corporate at all times on camera, right? You can do whatever works for you. Things that I think just don't work, period, is not looking into the camera. You don't have to look all the time like you're a crazy stalker, but a lot of people just don't look into the camera at all. And it's weird. And I get it because it's a human instinct, because you have a human face down here, probably your own or your speaking partners. So the instinct is to go there and not here, but look into the camera. And in the beginning, you might have to do that very consciously, a lot, like look into the camera at least 50% of the time. Don't be too close or too far from the camera, which I feel weird having to tell people, but so many people are too close, or they have some kind of weird angle where you're just looking up their nose, and I'm like, what am I supposed to get of that?
Yeah.
Maybe depending on what your video style is, you might want to play a little bit with going further back. It depends on how much of your body you actually want to show. Like it sounds like a duh thing, but if you're going to be gesturing a lot, then being so close that you only see a headshot is fairly pointless. You see what I mean? And then things like there are certain habits that come across as disingenuous, even if you don't actually are being disingenuous. It might just be awkwardness. A lot of times when people switch the camera on, their brain just goes blank, and they do the weirdest stuff that they would never do if they were not actually on camera, right? So it's not actually about being disingenuous. It's about the fact that at that moment you're freaking out, or you're getting such an adrenaline rush, because the adrenaline can make you numb. It's one of its effects. Because probably like once upon a time, thousands of years ago, if you get wounded while you're running from a predator, you can't sit and cry about it. You have to keep running, so you don't actually feel it until you calm down. So because they go numb, they're not actually aware of what their body's doing. So they'll do the weirdest stuff, like their limbs and their body, and not be aware of it. So I would avoid things like, for example, having a really one-sided / uneven body language, like sitting like this, or if you're going to be only gesturing with one half of your body. That happens sometimes. I don't know why, but people do that. Or they smile with only one half of their face and it looks weird. Or they smile only with their eyes but not with their mouth, or vice versa, which creeps us out. It reads as disingenuous. So you might actually, as you mentioned before, you might actually need to practice the smile. Be like, okay, so how does that look? Is it this? Is it just this? Am I just grimacing? I'm just smiling with my, like, am I looking like here's Johnny? Things like that. Yeah. Other body language stuff. I would not do things like touch your face too much, because again, that reads as I have something to hide, because that's almost like an after effect of what we do as children when we roar, and we do that like instinctively. We'll cover or scratch ourselves and things like that. Like it would just keep your hands out of your face unless you want to demonstrate like, here's how you loosen up your jaw. Yeah, there's not that many, I think, objective things that you shouldn't do with body language, other than stuff that is counterproductive. But
yeah, sure.
Don't look into like outer space. Look into the camera a lot of the time. Don't have weird one-sided body language. Don't touch your face too much. Don't stand too close to the camera. Yeah, things like that.
Yeah, and I think it's almost a case of people getting used to seeing themselves on camera, which can really help. So when I'm recording, I have myself off the screen so that I'm not distracted by, well, am I looking over here too much? If I look up here, how does that look? And trying to, so I'm focused on the guest more than anything.
That's good. Yeah.
But beforehand, I'll make sure the camera's positioned okay. I'll record myself a little bit, and I'll look where the questions are and on the screen, and see what it looks like when I'm looking around, and so that I can just focus on that camera more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, exposure really helps because there are probably things that's why someone like me helps, because you have an external eye. And obviously, once you get the hang of it, you can self feedback to an extent. Like once I've had a session or two with people, they'll start picking up stuff on their own, which is good. But you might need to film yourself and watch back, because sometimes the stuff that happens, because your brain just goes blank, either because of the anxiety. For me, it's usually not anxiety, but it's more of a case of I'm just so focused on this, on the camera, on the audience, that sometimes I might focus on myself a little too little, and then I'll watch it back and be like, did I just, like, depending on how tired I am that day, I might watch it back and be like, did I just slip some random German or Greek word in there? I didn't even notice that I did that. Or did I just like, I was like, did I say that? That's not what I meant. That was like a slip of the tongue. So things like that. Yeah, look at yourself. Usually one thing that a lot of people do, and this is one of my major tips, like hacks, if you want to call them, like minimum effort, maximum effect. You probably need to give more than you think.
Yeah. Okay.
More volume, more energy, more liveliness. You probably just need to give more, because most people, if you put them in front of an audience, the anxiety kicks in, then they clamp down, and then they kind of go really catatonic. They might be super nervous inside, but they're not actually, the audience cannot read your mind. They can only read your body language, your tone of voice, what kind of dynamics and patterns you're using, your choice of words, okay, to an extent, but they can't see how you feel. So a lot of people will get up on stage or in front of a camera, they'll be so nervous, I think their head is about to, split open from the adrenaline. And then they'll watch it back and be like, who's that zombie? Like, I felt like I was complete, like, 1.21 million gigawatts or whatever it was, line from the movie. And I watch back, and then there's super catatonic, no energy person. So you need to give more. Like, that goes even for on stage. And fun fact, because I'm very introverted actually by nature.
Okay.
So at drama school, they constantly kept yelling at me in the beginning, more, louder, more. And I was like, more? Like, I'm basically shouting like a lunatic. And they were like, no, you're not. Because your brain just normalizes whatever stimulus you're repeatedly exposed to. Like when you move to a new area and there's a train station next door, first week or two you can't sleep, and then your brain just starts tuning it out. So if you're used to kind of speaking at a low volume and kind of mumbling your words, this is going to read to you as normal. So you speaking even at this volume that I'm using right now is going to feel like shouting.
Okay. So
don't assume that how you feel translates on camera. You need to actually watch it back or have someone watch you. So give more. Like 95% chance, if you're new and or uncomfortable on video, you'll need to give more. Because what I said about giving more, that already happens on stage. And then on video, that's another level up in terms of difficulty, because there's less of you to work with. You can't really use the space much. There's a limit to how much body language your audience can see. So you need to ramp the other manifestations up even more, like the voice, the volume, everything. It needs to be more. Like dial it up like 2-3 notches.
Wow.
And then you've probably got it right. If you feel like you're overdoing it and you're acting like a lunatic on crack, that's probably when you are doing enough.
I look. So when I do video like tutorials for courses and things like that, I usually stand up in front of a whiteboard and I try not to go like that and read the whiteboard, because I know what's on it. It's just one of those weird things. It's like, oh, better not forget. So I'll read it. But I weirdly enough, because I use my hands as well and doing all this and everything, but I also kind of jump on my feet on my tiptoes when I get excited. And I it reminds me of Gordon Ramsay when he's on camera, because he's always like this in front of the camera, and he's always pushing towards the camera. And I always think, if I'm at that level that I feel a bit uncomfortable because I don't normally do that, then that's probably right.
Yeah, almost certainly you need to give more, and it needs to feel at least borderline too much for you. That's actually when you get it right.
Okay, love that. Right, so the final thing that I really want to cover, and I know we've covered some of these elements, but So I'm going to kind of rephrase the question that I was going to
Sure.
ask. But what are the things that people feel they should do but don't have to? So the original question was, what are people getting wrong? But
Mm,
I want to kind of more understand the things that we feel we should be doing, but
mm.
we don't actually have to be doing them, if you know what that means. They're more like fairy tales, that
Yeah.
like breakfast, the most important meal of the day. Well,
Don't get
is
me
it?
started on
Because
that.
if you look back to who
Mm,
actually said that, I think
mm.
they were actually sponsored by
Breakfast
Kellogg's.
cereals, probably. Yeah. I was like,
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
convenient. Yeah.
Exactly. So those types of things, where are we
Mm,
going wrong?
mm. Okay. Well, we did touch on some of that, but some
Mm.
more kind of, I don't know, myth busting. What can we
Yeah,
call it?
that's the one.
Yeah. Don't feel, because people are like, oh, people buy from people, blah, 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 blah. And they feel the need to play a character. So again, I need to emphasize it's about picking up some new skills and making them your own. Like
Hmm.
if you're not naturally a comedian, like I'm naturally fairly over the top anyway. So it's natural for me to like do different voices and act at least a little bit off on camera. That's fine. But for me, that's comfortable. If you're not that kind of person, like please don't try and deliberately be funny. I think that's gonna read very wrong. Like
Mm.
don't force yourself to be, or vice versa. Like if you're like me, trying to be super stiff and corporate, I mean, I guess I could do it with the training, but it would be so unrewarding and so boring to watch for anyone.
Yeah.
So don't feel like you have to play a character. Like when people say people buy from people, that doesn't mean there's all kind of different tastes out there. And I mean, as a marketer, you know that better than anyone. It's about who your target audience is. So there
Hmm.
presumably are people out there who are okay with someone being funny. And
Hmm.
there are probably people out there who are okay with someone being relatively serious. Like that doesn't mean like morbid, like I watch this video now I want to cry. But it doesn't have to be you hamming it up as much as you think you are, because I think a lot of people feel the pressure that as I am, I'm not good enough, basically, to get out there, right? So I
Hmm.
have to be
Yeah.
someone. Like it's almost like have like a spin the wheel. Who should I be? Should I be like a quirky TikTok person? Should I be like whatever? It's not about that. It's about finding the way to be you. It has to be real. It has to be, well, in the beginning it can be a bit uncomfortable until the technical stuff settles, but then you can still be you. Like
Hmm.
don't play a character. I don't think you have to be funny or controversial or edgy or whatever, or dress a certain way. Like sometimes people are like, oh, why are you not wearing a suit, Nick? Like why are you only wearing like a casual shirt? I'm like, who asked you anyway? People let
Yep.
that stuff. I'm like, because I said so. Like, what's your point?
Mm.
There are all kinds of different tastes out there, I think. So as long as your message is, and I know this sounds a bit contradictory coming from someone who's like technique, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be useful, and it has to be real, and it has to be able to connect with the audience. And there's more than one ways to skin that cat. Like, don't think you have to dress a certain way or necessarily talk a certain way, apart from, as I said, some technical stuff we covered. And then the other thing, what was I going to say? I threw myself off track here. I
So
can
while
grab,
you
I can
while you
grab
get
that.
back on
Yeah.
track, then what you said then, it really resonates,
Mm,
because if you think about watching someone on screen,
mm,
or an actor or actress, or you go and see a play, or anything where somebody's portraying a character, then you meet
mm.
them in real life, you almost expect them to be like that character.
Yeah.
And when you find out they're not, you're a little bit,
Mm,
oh, well, you're not what I thought you were going to be. And that
yeah.
is not what you want from a
Yeah.
business point of view, from being on
Mm,
camera to somebody meeting you and
mm.
then going away thinking, well, they were an asshole, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, ideally, you want them to say, oh, you're exactly as I thought you were going to be.
Yep.
Which, not to brag, but I get that all the time. Like, yeah,
Brilliant.
but I am
Love
I
it.
am letting my freak flag fly on LinkedIn, so I don't think anyone's going to expect me to be super serious and corporate.
That's cool.
Anyway, yeah, you want that experience. Other things that people think they need to do. I don't know. What do they think they need to do on video that we haven't covered? Maybe something like keep it to a certain I mean, that's technical stuff, like keep it to this length versus that length, or
Yeah.
have an intro versus not have an intro. But as a marketer, you can say more about that stuff. We'll go
Okay.
through some of the
That's cool.
points. Yeah.
So let's move this along then, and let's
Mm,
get into some quick fire questions to finish
mm.
up, if you're ready for them.
Sure, let's go.
Excellent. What's that source of info you cannot live without.
Depends on how fast and loose you're playing with info. I mean, I watch a lot of YouTube, but other than that, does it count? Because that's
Yeah, absolutely.
entertaining.
Yeah, of course.
But you
Yeah.
can watch tutorials and stuff. I've taught myself a bunch of stuff because I'm a
Yeah.
technophobe just by watching YouTube. I'm like, oh, how do I reset this phone thing? Yeah.
Love it. What was the last thing you remember Googling?
Oh, that was I actually remember that. It was yesterday. I don't remember why I got there, but I Googled, is passive aggression a form of controlling? Like, I don't know why I think I had a conversation with a friend, and she was like, oh, I think that person's being passive aggressive. I was like, they were trying to control you. And then I had to Google it to make sure that I didn't just make that one up.
Cool. If you could tell your 10-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
Oh God. Stop waiting for permission. I think if you're naturally introvert, like I'm a recovering wallflower, I refer to myself as that all the time. And I think for way too long, I expected if I just sit and blend in with a background, like wallflowering away, someone's going to come in and rescue me and give me permission to do what I want. Like, no one's going to give you permission. You just have to do it. Be prepared to apologize if you do something wrong, like if you hurt someone. But yeah, stop waiting for people to allow you to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Give yourself your own permission.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask this question. What's the most important thing we need to know in marketing right now? What I'll say is, what's the most important thing we need to know when we're on camera?
It's not about you. I can't say it enough. It's not about you. Never is.
Love it. And Nick, final question, most important question. If people want to find out more about you or get in touch with you, where should they go?
For now, it would be my LinkedIn profile, which I guess you can add somewhere in the notes, so I don't have to spell my mile-long surname. And then my website, which is not live yet, would be one word, theintrovertmentor.com. But maybe by the time this airs, it's actually going to be live, so I don't know.
Okay, cool. I'll put all the links in the show notes as normal. This is the part where I get to pronounce your surname again, so here we go.
Yeah, give it a shot.
I'm running up to this one, by the way. So, right. Nick Diakanastasis.
Yeah, that was good.
Thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Brilliant.